On the day Qinlan and Bai Guang returned to China, I burned down our wedding room. I took nothing with me except the twins he gave birth to. At the beginning, he was terminally ill and in urgent need of a kidney transplant. I resolutely donated my kidney to him, but he felt that I did whatever it took to break up him and Bai Guang in order to marry. Now I have finally given up and left in a fake death, but he completely collapsed when he learned of my death. Mid-Autumn Festival is a day for a family reunion, and it is also the birthday of the children. The children begged Kailan for a long time before he finally agreed to go home once. He casually said, "I want to eat home-cooked meals," and I endured the discomfort caused by the fevered, cooked a full table of meals. Now the food has long been cold, the children are guarding the cake and refuse to sleep, and Kailan has never appeared. Dizzy, I casually stuffed a handful of antibiotic medicine into my mouth and went out. I know where he is. Whenever he is upset, he always goes to his girlfriends to talk. The lights were on in the courtyard of the villa, and Qinlan was toasting with a few sisters. Chen Feng is going back to China. What are you going to do with Zhu Huishen, who married into your family, and your twins? My knock on the door froze in my dread, and I didn't knock. Qinlan's delicate face was a little distorted under the light and shadow, and her brows were furrowed. "Divorce, and let him take the children away, so that Xin Feng won't be unhappy when he sees them." Qinlan's answer was cold and resolute, but it was also within my expectations. After all, if his grandfather hadn't forced him to marry me before his death, Chen Feng would not have gone abroad and disappeared, so he used his appearance to resist at our wedding. A son-in-law who came to the door, and the bride ran away on the spot. I instantly became the laughing stock of the whole city. 1 year after the marriage, the two did not see each other, and they gave birth to a pair of twins overnight. When the child was born, Qinlan had no pity at all, and scolded the nurse to take the child away quickly, refusing to look at it again, just because it was evidence of his betrayal of his beloved. On the day he promised to go home to celebrate his child's birthday, I naively thought that the ice beauty was finally going to melt. Someone spoke in the silence. "Actually, your husband treats you very well. Although his family went bankrupt, he used his previous connections to get you a lot of resources. He didn't even recover his health, and he drank so much with clients that he had gastric bleeding, but he still accompanied you to build the company to this size." This was immediately refuted by another girlfriend. Without him, Yulan could still have grown bigger and stronger. If that man hadn't been so self-indulgent and came to donate a kidney, Yulan's grandfather wouldn't have forced Yulan to marry him, and he and Chu Feng wouldn't have missed each other for so many years. A man who marries into his wife's family and lies off her. Does he really think he is still the enlightened young master? Just dump him. Kinlan's heart choked for a moment, and her old voice rang out. "It's so disappointing to flirt with him. Let's try." One of the women smiled charmingly and suddenly said, "Zhu Huihai tends to have a good appearance, and he used to be a hot commodity. Since you don't want him anyway, why not let the sisters have a taste of what it's like? Just think of it as ordering a male model." Amid the laughter, Kinlan remained silent, but raised her head and drank the champagne in her hand. I often feel that my life is not satisfactory. It keeps going off track and heading for every snowy day. Kinlan and I met at a charity auction held in my house. At that time, I was still the eldest son of the powerful Zhu family, and Qinlan was just a small boss of a startup company. She even borrowed her ticket from her friend. The exhibits at the auction also included my paintings. The powerful people frequently offered high prices, but for the opportunity to get close to the Zhu family, only a girl in the corner admired my paintings intently. The painting is called Mother, which is my most satisfactory work. When I was fascinated by it, a tear actually dripped from the corner of the girl's eye. Perhaps she noticed that I was looking at her. Kleinland took a few steps back and looked at me timidly. "Master Zhu, your painting is really good, but I can't afford it." A spring breeze blew through my heart, and then it beat wildly. Later I learned that Kinlan's parents died early, and it was her grandfather who raised her alone. My paintings deeply moved her, so I gave her the painting, and thus began a 6-year unrequited love. Kin Lan was always reserved and distant, but she never refused openly, so I always fantasized about impressing her with my heart. For this reason, I introduced him to many top resources and watched his company grow bigger and bigger. However, the Zoo family collapsed overnight, and I was the only one left in the Zoo family, and I was only alive in the flesh. Later, despite my cousin's strong dissuasion, I donated my kidney to Kin Lan. The sequel of the operation almost took half of my life, and I was forced to put down my paintbrush. Grandpa Kin knew that the Kin family owed me, and before he died, he forced Kin Lan to marry. Kin Lan couldn't bear to say no, and the condition was that she would only accept me as a son-in-law. After marriage, I realized that he wanted to marry his white moonlight, and the position of husband in his heart would always belong to that man. That mid-autumn festival Kin Lan, who was hung over, went home for the first time. I originally just wanted to help him go to the bedroom to rest, but he was hugged tightly by him who was drunk. He was like a slippery snake. His palms that wind around my body tighter and tighter kissed me. I made a big mistake in the heat of the moment. When I woke up, Kin Lan pulled the quilt, tears in her eyes, and slapped me in the face. Aren't you satisfied with marrying me? You actually did such a mean thing, Ace Cumbag. I thought it was wrong from the beginning. I should have left long ago. I tiredly returned to the villa, the marriage cage that trapped Kin Lan and I. The children were not asleep as expected, and they rushed over and hugged my thighs tightly. Are Mom and Dad back too? Then they ran to the door happily, and then turned back dejectedly. Ping Ping's little face flushed red, and she cried out, Mom, don't you want us any more? My heart was tightly grasped by a big hand, and it hurt and suffocated. I squatted down and hugged them. Dad wants you, followed Ad, okay? I couldn't bear to tell them that, in fact, their mother didn't want them at all, and Diane the children were stumbling blocks to his happiness. And Anne patted my shoulder like a little adult. Dad, don't be sad. Wherever Dad goes, we go. After finally coaxing them to sleep, I rushed into the bathroom, turned on the shower, and let the water flow down my head to wash away the tears that could not be stopped. The sharp sound of running water covered the crying and gave me the last dignity as a man. They have never been happy for a moment to become my children. Since she learned of her pregnancy, Kin Lan wanted to abort them all the time until the doctor said if you abort them, you can't get pregnant again. She gave up because she still wanted to have children for Chen Feng. After giving birth to the children, facing the two little balls handed over by the nurse, his first reaction was to turn his head away in disgust and scold the nurse to hold them away, and he felt disgusted when he saw them. I am both a father and a mother, and I have worked hard to raise the children. He never acknowledged these two children to the outside world, and even scolded the children for calling him Mom. They are obviously his own children, but they are not as good as strangers. Whenever the children asked expectantly, will Mom come back? I always made up one lame excuse after another, and in the end even the children said, Dad is just a liar. Leaving is a relief for everyone. Perhaps Kin Lan suddenly remembered his promise to the children, and he came back late at night. I was packing my luggage, and suddenly Kin Lan's cold voice rang behind me. What are you doing? I turned around and bumped into Kin Lan's drunken eyes, with a subtle difference in her eyebrows. I tried to sound calm. I can't sleep, so I cleaned up the house. The smell of alcohol spread in the air, and a cool breeze from the windowsill blew me coldly from the scalding heat. Suddenly, Kin Lan leaned over and bumped into my arms, his tone almost begging, stay with me, okay? He was so drunk that he mistook me for Chen Feng. Before I could push him away, he tiptoed to kiss my lips, pried open my lips and teeth, and invaded me wantonly with the intoxicating aroma of wine. His slender fingers haphazardly unbuttoned my shirt as if he couldn't wait a second. Suddenly, I heard the joke she and her girlfriends had just made. Just think of it as ordering a male model. The humiliation and pain were overwhelming, almost engulfing me. I couldn't bear it anymore and pushed him away cruelly. If you like Chen Feng, you shouldn't have agreed to marry me in the first place. Otherwise, why would we torture each other and hate each other like now? I am a man, and I have dignity even if I love someone. Without answering, Kin Lan's eyes gradually became clear with endless resentment. I ignored him and continued to pack my luggage. He suddenly grabbed my wrist, but his face was stunned when he touched my skin. Do you have a fever? What do you do as a grown man? You can't even take care of yourself. He wanted to reach out to feel the temperature of my forehead, but I easily dodged him. After an extremely impatient TSK sound, so you went to find me. What did you hear? I didn't care anymore and said everything. Do you think Chen Feng went abroad because you married me? He was afraid that you would ask him to donate a kidney. What right do you have to slander him? Kin Lan picked up the glass water cup at hand and threw it out. I didn't dodge and took the heavy blow on my forehead. The glass cup fell to the ground and broke into several pieces, mixed with blood. In his eyes, I was also the glass cup that could hold all his negative emotions, and it didn't matter if it was broken. The sticky blood blurred my eyes. In the blur, I seemed to seek inland, nervously reaching out to me, but finally took it back. He stood there, cold as ice. You want me to come back? I'm back. That's it. Then the sound of high heels disappeared in the night, and my obsessed heart disappeared with it. The next day, Kinlan sobered up and asked her secretary to bring birthday gifts to Ping Ping An, and the children were thrown directly at the door. Ping Ping looked disgusted. Today is not my birthday. What's the point of sending me now? And An was indignant. I wanted my mother to go home before, so that she could accompany my father. Since my father doesn't want my mother anymore, then we don't want my mother either. The unfavored child has lived cautiously since childhood. He is only 2 years old, but he is mature and sensible. And An asked me in a baby voice, Dad, where will we go? I touched his head and told him back to my father and grandmother's hometown. The former Zhu family manor has long been sold, and now he can only go back to my grandmother's old house in the countryside. At the beginning, my mother wanted to live in the big city more than once, but my grandmother refused because she couldn't bear to leave her hometown, so my mother often took me to the countryside to stay for a while to accompany my grandmother. There is no amusement park or high-rise buildings there, but there are birds singing, flowers blooming, and small bridges in flowing water. The two little kids hugged me tightly, blocking my next words. With Daddy, anywhere is the best place. Him, Lan, and I have been very busy recently. He is preparing to bring Chen Feng back to China, and I am preparing to take the children away. After all, he has long been accustomed to taking the initiative. If I want to leave, I must make plans. Although the children said, I don't want my mother, the day before they left, they still looked at Kin Lan's photo in a daze. After hesitating again and again, I still called Kin Lan. The call was connected, and the impatient voice was still. What's the matter? The children want to see their mother. Do you want to come back? The last time. Will she come back? Xiaolan, if you are busy, I will fly back abroad. It seems that I am not that important. It was Qian Feng's voice. Qian Lan hurriedly explained, You are very important. He is nothing. Then the phone was hung up. When fate is over, even seeing each other for the last time is a luxury. The portrait I gave him is still hanging on the bedside, and I can still vaguely remember the crystal tear of Qian Lan. I lit the lighter and ignited it. The fire licked the flammable materials in the room frantically and soon swept the entire villa. My marriage with Kin Lan began with this portrait and ended with this portrait. The flames shot up to the sky. The figures of me and the children went against the flames, holding hands and not looking back. Kin Lan, I will give you the freedom you want. The fire was too fierce, enough to burn all eternal things to ashes, and I took the children back to my grandmother's old house in a tourist town. There were often tourists coming and going at the door. After my grandmother passed away, everything in the house remained the same, but covered with layers of dust. Pushing away the dust, I seemed to still see my grandmother holding a big watermelon and beckoning me to come and eat. Cut it in half with a knife. Fearing that I would not eat enough, she hurriedly gave me a spoon and asked me to hold the watermelon and dig it. The wrinkles at the corners of my eyes burst into flowers, and I laughed at me for eating like a little cat. I took my children and learned it from my grandmother to live a quiet and stable life. We carried a hose and cleaned up the weed-covered yard. I plan to clean up this place and open my own DIY handmade shop here in the future to sell some tourist peripherals. News report. Kin's villa caught fire. Kin Lan's husband and a pair of twins are suspected to have died in the fire. When the raging fire engulfed everything, Kai Lan was accompanying Chen Feng in the hotel. Chen Feng returned to China in a hurry and was not fully prepared. With a smirk on his face, he said, "I'm going to the pharmacy to buy necessities for tonight." How could Qin Lan not know what Chen Feng was hinting at? After Chen Feng left, Qin Lan put her hand on her chest to test it. It was strange that she was not as excited as she had imagined, and her heartbeat was also very slow. So when Chen Feng rushed to her, she almost instinctively rejected this man who had been thinking about day and night, and subconsciously pushed him away. "I'm sorry, something happened suddenly at the company. I'm leaving first." He left like he was escaping. In fact, he couldn't understand why he became like this. In fact, that night with Zhu Huixin, he was not drunk to the point of not being able to tell Chen Feng from Zhu Huixin. Under the influence of alcohol, his body instinctively wanted to get close to him, preferably close enough to be indistinguishable from each other. The regret when he woke up made him habitually put all the blame on that man, since he had always been tolerant of him. When Kai Lan learned about the fire in the villa, he was stunned for a moment, and a trace of regret quietly occupied his brain. He couldn't help thinking if he had gone back that day, would all this have happened? However, he still had a fluke in his heart, thinking that all this was just a trick played by Zhu Huishen. This man is really as useless as ever, and he will do anything to achieve his goals. What tricks is he playing? When he said this, Qin Lan's heart was full of contempt, until the secretary handed him the relics found at the scene. It was a burnt wedding ring and two half-burned gifts. The wedding ring was the only connection between Zhu Huishen and him. He treasured it, never left it. The birthday gifts he gave to his children were destroyed by the ruthless fire even before they were unpacked. The fire started in the bedroom. It seemed that he set it himself. The door was locked from the inside. No one could escape from the fire. Qin Lan staggered. "You mean he gave up the chance to escape and would rather burn to death with his children in our wedding room?" Qin Lan didn't believe it. She had to expose the man's tricks. She staggered into the ruins, and her white fingers tried to dig out something with her bare hands, a flaw in Zhu Haitian's survival. If he dared to lie to her, he would make this stinky man pay a heavy price. However, there was nothing left at the scene except ashes. The children's gifts were thrown outside the door, leaving only half of them. There was nothing left about Zhu Huixin. In the past, he always felt that Zhu Huixin was a young master who was out of touch with the world, and his love was just a win later. He felt that Zhu Huixin was willing to donate a kidney in order to turn his life around. And he and the child he had to give birth to were disgusting. Now that he has used death to clear all ties, he is not. That night, Kailan had a dream. In the dream, he went to celebrate the child's birthday as promised. The children happily opened the gifts, jumped in front of him, and called him Mom intimately. He did not call Chen Feng's name by mistake, but called him Aishina affectionately. He was not so cruel as to smash Zhu Huixin's forehead, but kissed her hard. When Zhu Huixin called her to see the child, she happily went to the appointment, and the family sat together for dinner, talking and laughing. In her sleep, Kenlan's mouth corners were slightly raised, as if immersed in the beauty of this moment. However, after a thunderclap, Kinlan suddenly woke up and touched a piece of emptiness beside the bed, and he was completely awake. Want to live with such a despicable man? You must have been scared by the fire. Zhu Huishan died just like a drop of water disappearing into the sea. Kinlan kept telling herself that there would be no more waves in her heart, and I and the children became cool gods in the countryside, happier than in the big city. In the past, I would have a whole playground as a gift on my birthday. Now I can also let the children live a good life with my own skills. Soon the children reached school age. Because of my good artistic aesthetics, my shop gradually became famous, and more tourists came to visit. Many female tourists wanted to take pictures with me undasked for my contact information, but I politely refused. Years later, occasionally someone introduced me to a marriage. The woman did not want it. Ariad was willing to accept a child. The main reason was that I was down to earth, hardworking, good-looking, and good character. I always smiled and then refused. Until one day, the children saw their mother again on EV. Today, Kinlan is more successful. As a financial strong woman, she was interviewed, and Xin Feng was naturally by her side. The gossipy reporter asked Kinlan, Ms. Xin, your husband has been dead for 2 years. When do you plan to marry Mr.? Kinlan looked unhappy, but before she could speak, Chen Feng immediately answered, Good things are coming. Everyone please look forward to it. The children looked back and found that I was watching it, so they turned off the TV immediately. I smiled inferently. Let's take a break today and go catch lobsters together. The children cheered all the way out. When the children ended, I came back covered in mud. I almost thought I was hallucinating. The woman I tried every means to avoid was standing at the door of my store. She never smoked in my memory, but she paced back and forth with a cigarette between her fingertips. There were cigarette butts all over the door. It was obvious that she had been waiting for a long time. The mottled shadows of the trees in the afternoon shook her delicate and small face, revealing fatigue. After stepping on the cigarette butt, Kailan looked me up and down, and the corners of her red lips raised a sneer. My husband, you were like this after leaving me. You really make it easy for me to find you. Kin Lan is a vengeful person. This time she came to me. She must be here to take revenge on me. I stared at her deep eyes, and the words I had already organized in my heart came to my mouth, but I couldn't say them. I simply took the child's hand and brushed her shoulder as if ignoring her. At the moment of closing the door, I didn't expect Canelan to suddenly reach out, and the door leaf hit his wrist. With a bang, Canelan groaned in pain, but still refused to take it back. I had no choice but to open the door and persuade him. Go back. The former me is dead, and now we have no relationship. Canelan looked at the serious injury and bent over in pain to cover his injured wrist. The moment he lowered his head, a necklace swung out from his collar and swayed in front of me. Hanging in the middle of the necklace was my wedding ring. Why does he carry my ring with him? Kinlan reluctantly waved to the children through the narrow crack of the door. Call me Mom. Ping Ping, and turned around and walked away, refusing to pay attention to him. He didn't quite understand what he wanted to do. In the past, when the children called her Mom, she only scolded them, saying that they didn't deserve to call her What is she doing now? After Kindland's repeated requests, I finally agreed to negotiate with her. After sending Ping Ping away, it was just Kinlan and I who worked in front of each other. Kinlan, wearing a smart hip skirt, leaned on the sofa with an attitude of superiority. Zhu Huishan, don't forget, we haven't divorced yet. I have the right to take the child away. I sneered. What grade is the child in this year? What does he like to eat? What is he allergic to? Do you know? Kinlan choked. She found that she didn't know anything about the child she gave birth to. But soon she resumed her everything is under control attitude. As long as you come back to me, I don't need to fight for custody. You know, there is nothing that Kinlan can't get. I looked at him unfounded, a little funny. I think your Chen Feng should not be so generous, right? Kuang Lan did not get angry, but there was a little joy in her eyes. Are you jealous? If you are jealous, it means you still care about me. He stood up and grabbed me and wanted to crash into my arms. In the past, I couldn't help but be moved by his initiative, but not now. I clenched my fist, put the back of my hand on his shoulder, and kept my distance to avoid suspicion. Miss Qin, please be respectful. I will cooperate with your divorce. I don't want anything, just the custody of the child. Qin Lan panted and stared at me in disbelief. Do you think I came here just to divorce you? No need to say anything else. I stopped the upcoming chattering. In this marriage, Kinlan has always occupied a high position. Now she has lowered her status just to regain control. It's just a woman's possessiveness. The next morning, there was a clanging sound from next door. When I sent the children to school, I found that Kinlan had directed the workers to move all the offices next door. Kinlan was busy and sweaty, greeting the children. Good morning, Ping and Un. Ping and Un turned his head away and ignored him stubbornly. Tin Lan smiled at me again. If you and the child don't want to go back, then I will stay. She is now very much like me back then. After marriage, I also thought about starting a business again, but Kindlan left the child to me alone after giving birth. Making milk, changing diapers, and coaxing the child to sleep, one is enough for me, let alone two. I can't do everything, so I have to stay at home and be a housewife. In order to be a good backing for Kinlan, in addition to pulling resources, I have to learn to do housework from scratch, so my hands are oft uninjured. I took care of Kailan as my own dream, but all I got was disdain. The end of a gambler is bankruptcy, and my end is despair. So when you don't love, everything you do is in vain, just like her now. Kinlan started to go to the kindergarten every day to wait for the children to finish school. Even if my children and I never paid attention to him, he still enjoyed it. He started to learn to cook, and when he brought us delicious food to taste, he was always turned away. Xin Lan came to the parent-child activities in the kindergarten uninvited. Even if she sat alone in the corner, she was happy to look at me and my children with a silly smile. With that crazy look, no one would have thought that she was a female CEO who was a big shot in the business world. I don't know what was wrong with her, and she adopted several stray dogs. I still remembered I felt lonely unraised a stray dog in the villa. However, even if Kindland rarely came to the villa, he still couldn't stand it because he was allergic to dog hair. He gave away the dog that I had raised with affection, and no matter how much I begged, he refused to tell me where the dog was sent. Kindland held the dog and asked me through the fence, "Is it cute?" I noticed that there were more and more red spots on his arms. In the past, I would have analyzed the purpose behind his behavior, but now I don't want to and don't care. When he has played enough of the boring game of chasing husbands, he will naturally go back to be his high-ranking female president. But what I didn't expect was that Kindland, who is used to a luxurious life, actually stayed in this poor little village for several months. It was Mid-Autumn Festival again, and it was also the children's birthday. I started preparing early, sitting in the yard under the huge full moon lit birthday candles. Be safe and sound, close your eyes. Make a wish in a formal manner. I hope my father will always be happy. I hope my father will make a lot of money so that my father doesn't have to work so hard every day. A great sense of relief rose in my heart, and the sudden singing interrupted this happy scene. As a cart slowly pushed in, Kind Lamb, with a tender face, sang the birthday song with emotion. At a glance, there were many gift boxes on the cart. After the song, Kinlan smiled and opened her arms to the children. "This is the birthday gift that Mom prepared for you, from 1 to 5 years old. Do you like it?" The children looked at each other and silently lowered their heads to cut the cake. Kinlan, who had been frustrated, returned to her yard. Without lights, her only figure was buried in the darkness, and she looked at us from time to time. "The moon is full, but the people are not complete, and the people are complete, but the moon is not full." Looking at the same moon, everyone's mood is different. Kai Lan suddenly spoke up, leaning on the fence, and asked me, "Why ish saved me in the first place?" Behind all the absurd behaviors, there is nothing more than war driving at love. Hala for King Lan probably reached its peak when the Zhu family was destroyed. From a rich young master to a stray dog, this sudden change almost crushed me. When I was at my lowest point, I was chased by different people for debts, and I lived like a sewer rat. When I was thirsty, I drank dirty river water, and when I was hungry, I went to the garbage can to find food. Even though I was so careful, I was still caught by the debt collectors. They were as fierce as the deadly demons. Seeing that I had no money, they wanted to sell my organs to pay off the debt. I had already accepted my fate. Since the misfortune in my family, I had nothing to lose. But Kinlan appeared like a Buddhist staff and saved me from the water and fire. He gave them a sum of money, condescending, and warned them not to embarrass me again. Maybe for him, this money is not worth mentioning, or even just pity me like a poor beggar, but for me it is salvation. She is like a flower blooming in my corrupt life. Later I realized that it was not my flower, I just bloomed in a way. My cousin introduced me to go abroad to seek refuge with her. She married abroad in her early years and has always lived a comfortable life. She said that with my talent, I will definitely be able to show my talents abroad. Now that I have completed the immigration procedures, I am just waiting for me to take a plane to go abroad. I never thought that I would be on the same flight as Qin Feng. At the airport, I overheard a conversation between Qin Feng and his brother. Kinlan is seriously ill and in urgent need of a kidney. It is very likely that I will be asked to donate a kidney to him. If we are matched, it will be difficult for me to refuse, so I have to leave now and then find a random excuse to break up and put the blame on him. I met a rich woman abroad, and she wants to invest with me. My good days are still to come. My mind was full of Ken Lan is dying, and I finally gave up boarding the plane. Fortunately, Ken Lan and I matched the kidney source. Severe surgical complications almost kept me from getting off the operating table. However, the first thing Ken Lan asked when he woke up was the kidney donated by Chen Feng. When he learned that it was me, not Chen Feng, who saved his life, he just said, "Oh." In fact, I had no intention at first. I planned to go abroad after I recovered my health, even if Grandpa Ken suddenly became critically ill and forced Ken Lan to marry me. Otherwise, he would die with regret. Outsiders envy me for marrying a beauty like Ken Lan, gaining both money and love, but they also hate me for being ruthless and not hesitating to hurt my body in order to marry into the Kin family. But these are all their paranoid, one-sided words, but even Kin leaves them in the past. I always wanted to explain, but Kin Lan didn't listen. Now she has learned to listen. But I don't want to explain anymore because the story between Kin Lan and I ended in that fire. In the finale, seeing that I didn't respond, Ken Lan gently called my name again. Shen has. The stars were rushed in her eyes or tears. You always keep silent, so I ignore that you are also suffering. I owe you a life. Let me repay you with the rest of my life, okay? Even if she cried and made people pity her, the only response she got was my two words, no. Recently, the number of tourists has increased, and there is often a long line in front of my store. There was a commotion at the door, and suddenly a man rushed in with a group of men and started to smash without saying anything. The leader was Chen Feng. He grabbed my collar and gritted his teeth. "You are a grown man. Why do you have to seduce a married woman? How dare you touch my woman?" Then he shouted at the confused tourists, "You are still foolishly giving him money. People like him who have no moral bottom line should be hacked to death." Some tourists believed him and whispered to each other, "This shop owner looks honest. Why is he destroying other people's marriages?" It is said on the internet that he seems to be very close to a woman who looks very rich. Maybe he is kept by a rich woman. How shameless. That's right, he's pretending to be noble. Why is he pretending? Everyone, don't buy, let's go. Peng Annan, who had just finished school, rushed into the crowd and stood in front of me. My dad is not that kind of person. He has disliked Mom for a long time, and it is Mom who is pestering him. Shameless. That's right, my dad is a good man. It's a matter between adults, and I don't want the children to get hurt. Be good, go to the room first. It's Dad's responsibility to protect. After much persuasion, they were willing to go in. Xin Feng opened his mouth to continue to slander. I rubbed my palms, raised my fist and hit him in the face. He was not prepared and was hit back. Jiang Feng was about to raise his hand to fight back, but Qin Lan, who heard the noise, squeezed through the crowd and blocked me. The punch was so powerful that blood slowly oozed from the corner of Qin Lan's mouth. Jin Feng panicked and was in a mess. Colin, I'm sorry. You came out suddenly and I couldn't stop you. Tin Lan's cold eyes were emotional. Didn't I tell you that we are over? Ever since Chen Feng said good things are coming in front of the media, the usually calm Qin Lan had the biggest temper in her life. She only recognized one husband in this life, and that was Zhu Huishen Haoishen. Ever since Shen left, I can no longer deceive myself. My heart tells me clearly that the person I love is him. You know I don't love you anymore, but you still pester Chen Feng after taking my money. This will only make me hate you more. Go away. Chen Feng was not willing to let go and grabbed Qin Lan's wrist tightly. Why? You said you wanted to marry me and only love me. Why did you suddenly change? I know. Is Zhu Huishin threatening you? I said he was a beggar from a poor family. What purpose could he have in getting close to you? He just wants your money. Wake up. At this moment, Chen Feng's ugly face was exposed. Qin Lan shook off his shackles expressionlessly. No one is threatening me. This is all my rude words. More and more tourists gathered around, and many of them raised their mobile phones to record. In order to prevent the store from closing down, I could only explain that it was all a misunderstanding. Unexpectedly, Ken Lan raised our marriage certificate in public. Zhu Huishan's my husband. He did not seduce a married woman. It's all my fault. It's my indecision that forced him to hide in this small country. I just ask you not to slander him. After Kailan finished speaking, the people around couldn't help but cast strange eyes at Chen Feng. They are a decent couple. Why is he a male mistress? Running here, they call police. Wanting here twice by so funny here. Owner a store with a childless. Seeing that no one was talking to him anymore, even Kind Lan drove him away. Chen Feng looked at Qin Lan, his voice almost pleading. Xiao Lan, I am not afraid to tell you, when I was abroad, my investment failed and I was heavily in debt, and the little money you gave me was not enough to fill the hole. Do you want to watch me being beaten to death by debt collectors? Hein Lan frowned, a bit of scrutiny in her eyes. This is the reason why you returned to China, right? Chen Feng wanted to quibble, but the police had already come and forcefully pulled him away. As the person involved, Zhu Huishan was also called to record a statement. After leaving the police station, Qin Lan wanted to step forward and hold Zhu Huishan's hand, but was afraid of being disliked by him, so she finally took it back. Can we start over again? The iceberg beauty Qin Lan smiled flatteringly at this moment, with fragmented water light in her iron eyes. Zhu Huishan had asked himself a question countless times. Does King Lan love him? At least at this moment, yes. But unfortunately, this answer has expired. Zhu Huishan smiled with relief. Kin Lan, I wish you happiness. This sentence easily shattered Kin Lan. He seemed to see Zhu Huishan's figure broken into countless pieces, and he couldn't catch it. He thought, it's better not to push him too hard. There is still a chance. There must be a chance. Since if you don't want to see me now, I'll come to see you another day. No need to change the day. No next time, no later. Su Huishan said firmly, as if he was saying an indisputable truth. The heart that was broken by himself would not be able to be filled with flesh and blood. From the moment he admitted that he loved Su Huishan, he realized belatedly that he was also full of holes. Perhaps Zhu Huishan had filled them by hollowing himself out. Zhu Huishan left, and the cold wind poured through his heart. Countless blood flowed out, and it was very painful. It turned out that it was so painful to warm a heart that could not be warmed. He really felt it. When he left, he looked back several times, so much that he had hallucinations. Zhu Huishan, who was originally resolute in hatred, suddenly opened his arms and said to him, "Let's be together," but he didn't. Qin Lan could only watch Zhu Huishan holding the hands of his children and never looking back. The divorce procedures between Qin Lan and Zhu Huishan went smoothly, and Qin Lan no longer entangled him. The water in the small village still flows, and Zhu Huishan and the children continue to live a peaceful life. A few years later, Zhu Huishan met a pretty good girl. The children liked her very much and depended on her. She also Zhu Huishan loved him to the bone, so Zhu Huishan decided to marry her. The days after marriage were harmonious and beautiful, so lively.